His breath was hot against my skin, close to my shoulder as he pressed me against the desk. The wood dug into my back, and I could hear it creak under the weight. My fingers clutched the edge, nails pressing into the surface, while his hands held my hips, strong, shaky, like he couldn't control himself. The room was filled with the mix of his scent, clean sweat, a hint of wood, and something warm that was just him, along with my own nervous energy. He moved fast, too rough, and I flinched. It hurt, more than I expected. Or, I whispered, my voice shaky. But even as the words left my mouth, my hands pulled him closer. My body was betraying my words. He paused, his eyes searching mine, and I could see the struggle in him, the need, the tension. The pain mixed with something else, something deeper I couldn't name. And still I didn't stop him. I let it happen. My body gave in, even while my mind screamed to push him away. I never thought I'd do something like this. Not at 40. Not with my boss's son, Ethan. My name is Claire. I'm a divorced paralegal who spent the last 10 years fighting to keep my life together, raising my teenage son, Max, and staying quiet and focused at the law firm where I work. 3 months ago, Ethan, 25, confident, sharp, started interning at the firm. He's the kind of guy who walks into a room and takes it over. Tall, lean, with a smile that feels like both a promise and a warning. I noticed him, of course I did. But I always told myself I wasn't that woman, the one who throws everything away for a risky moment. Or at least, that's what I believed. It started with late nights at the office. Richard, my boss and Ethan's father, would leave early, and Ethan would stay behind, asking for help with case files. I'd catch him watching me, his eyes lingering on my hands, the way I tucked my hair behind my ear. I told myself it was nothing. Just a young guy with a big ego. I've got gray hairs, a mortgage, and responsibilities. I don't live in some fantasy. But there was something there, a spark, a pull I couldn't ignore. And it scared me just as much as it excited me. What would you do if your boss's son brushed your hand one night and you didn't pull away? That's how it started for me. A week before it happened on the desk, we were alone, sorting papers. His hand touched mine on purpose this time, and his eyes locked onto mine. I froze, my heart pounded. "Ethan, don't," I said, but my voice was weak. He heard it, the hesitation. I should have walked out, I should have reported him, I should have done something, but I didn't. And that silence, that choice, changed everything. The night on the desk wasn't planned. Richard was out of town, and Ethan asked me to stay late, some excuse about a deadline. I knew it was a trap, but I said yes anyway. When he kissed me, his lips firm and urgent, I didn't stop him. I let his hands move under my clothes. I let the desk hold me up. It wasn't graceful. It was messy, rushed, clumsy. There was pain, heat, and something raw that felt real. When it was over, his forehead rested against mine, both of us breathing hard. For a moment, I felt alive, wanted, seen like I hadn't in years. But the guilt was already creeping in, heavy and sharp, ready to crush me. I didn't know how to live with what I'd done. I didn't know how to face Richard, or Max, or even myself, but I didn't stop it. And now, there's no way back. Loneliness has a way of settling into your bones, especially when you hit 40. I'd gotten used to it, the quiet apartment after Max went to bed, the tired face in the mirror, the way life felt like a loop of work, bills, repeat. Divorce does that to you. It strips you down until you're just getting by. I wasn't unhappy, not exactly. I had Max, my 16-year-old with messy hair and a laugh that could light up a room. I had my job steady, even if it wasn't exciting. But there was a hole inside me. A hunger I didn't admit until Ethan showed up. He started in June, fresh out of grad school. His father's golden boy. Richard, my boss, is a good man, strict but fair, always praising Ethan's ambition. But Ethan was different. He had his father's charm but none of the control. There was a boldness in him, a kind of edge that made people notice. He'd walk into the office, sleeves rolled up, tie loose, and every head would turn. I noticed him, how could I not? But I kept my distance. I'm not some dreamy teenager. I'm a mother, a professional, I know the rules. Still, Ethan got under my skin. It started small. He'd lean over my desk to point at a document, his arm brushing mine. "You're really good at this, Claire," he'd say, voice warm, and I'd feel a flush rise in my cheeks, something I hadn't felt in years. I'd catch myself smiling, then stop. Remind myself, he's 25, he's my boss's son, he's asterisk off limits asterisk. But he kept coming around, bringing me coffee, asking about Max, staying late to talk about nothing and everything. I was lonely, and Ethan filled a space I hadn't even realized was empty. My ex Tom left 7 years ago. Since then I'd felt invisible to men, to the world, even to myself. But Ethan saw me. Not just the paralegal, not just Max's mom. He saw me asterisk Claire the woman. He'd noticed things, a new scarf, the way I styled my hair. And his compliments, casual but intentional, lit a fire in me. "You look nice today," he'd say, holding my gaze a second too long. My pulse would jump. My willpower would weaken. One night, we were alone in the office, organizing files for a big case. The air was warm. The only sound was the hum of the AC. He handed me a stack of papers, and his fingers brushed mine. I didn't pull away. "You ever get tired of this?" he asked, voice low, like we were sharing a secret. I shrugged. "Just bills," I muttered. But he stepped closer. "You deserve more than this, Claire," he said, and my breath caught because it wasn't just about work. I looked at him, his face close, his jaw sharp in the dim light, and I felt the danger. The pull. I turned away, hands shaking. "We should finish up." But my voice was weak, and he heard it. After that, everything changed. Every glance, every touch felt charged. His hand would brush mine when he passed me a pen. He'd watch me when I laughed. I'd lie awake at night telling myself I was imagining it, that I was pathetic for even thinking about him. He was Richard's son. I could lose my job, my reputation, my son's trust. But the truth was, I hadn't felt this alive in years. And Ethan was the reason. I told myself I'd stay strong, keep it professional. But every time he walked into the room, that promise broke a little more. The office became a minefield. Every moment with him felt like one step closer to disaster. He stayed late more often, even when Richard wasn't there. I couldn't avoid him. And worse, I didn't want to. His presence was like a current, pulling me in, no matter how many warnings screamed in my head. We worked side by side, the printer humming, my keyboard clicking, but the silence between us was loud with what we weren't saying. I'd feel his eyes on me when I was filing, when I was drinking coffee. And it wasn't casual anymore. It was heavy, deliberate, like he was daring me to look back. We started finding reasons to be alone. He'd ask for help with a case he didn't need help with. I'd stay, knowing it was wrong. One evening, we were in the file room, cool, musty, shelves closing us in. He reached past me for a folder, his chest brushing my shoulder. I froze. My skin tingled. "Sorry," he muttered, but he didn't step back. I could feel his warmth, the faint smell of his cologne, something like cedar. My hands shook as I grabbed a file. When I turned, his face was inches from mine. "Claire," he said, voice low, rough. My name sounded like a question. I should have stepped back, said something sharp. But I didn't. I just stood there, breath shallow. His eyes searched mine, like he was waiting for a sign. "We should get back," I whispered, but it was barely audible. He nodded slowly, like he didn't believe me. Then he started opening up. Over late-night coffee in the break room, he told me about his mom, how she left when he was young, how he never felt like he was enough for his father. "You get it, don't you?" he said, tracing the rim of his mug. "Always having to prove yourself." I nodded, throat tight. I did get it, years of being the strong one, the reliable one, the one who never cracks. I told him about Max, how I worried I wasn't doing enough, how I carried the weight of Tom's absence every day. Ethan listened, really listened. His eyes were soft but intense, and for the first time in years I felt seen, exposed, and it hurt in the best and worst way. The touches grew bolder. A pen passed with fingers lingering, an arm brush in the hallway. Once he fixed a jammed printer while I stood close, and his hand brushed my lower back, just for a second, but it sent a shock through me. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. I nodded, face burning. I was okay, I was falling, and I knew it. Every moment with him was a step toward something I couldn't take back, and the fear was just as strong as the desire. The almost moment came on a Monday night. We were alone, going over contracts. The office was dark except for our desk lamps. He leaned over my shoulder, pointing at a clause, his breath warm on my neck. I turned, and our faces were too close. His eyes were dark, searching. "Claire," he whispered. I felt the weight of him, the pull. His hand touched my cheek, his thumb brushing my skin. I leaned into it, my heart racing. Before I pulled back, breath ragged. "We can't," I said. But it didn't sound like a command. It sounded like a plea. He nodded, but his eyes didn't leave mine. When he left that night, the air felt charged, like we'd crossed a line without even touching. I went home and stood under the shower, water scalding my skin, trying to wash away the feeling. I was Max's mom, Richard's employee. I was supposed to be responsible, not reckless. But Ethan was in my head, in my blood, and I didn't know how to stop it. It broke on a Wednesday night. The office was empty except for us. Richard was at a conference. Ethan asked me to stay late, some excuse about a client report. I knew it was a lie, but I said yes. My heart was already racing. The air was thick, heavy with heat. Ethan sat at his desk, but his eyes kept finding me. Each look was a spark, building towards something we couldn't stop. We were in the conference room, papers spread out when it happened. He stood too close, his arm brushing mine as he reached for a file, and he didn't pull away. "Claire," he said, voice low, strained, "I can't keep pretending." My breath caught. I wanted to tell him to stop, to end it, but I couldn't move. He stepped closer, eyes locked on mine. I saw the hunger, the same need tearing me apart. "Tell me to stop," he said, voice rough. But I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. And then, I don't know who moved first. His lips crashed into mine, urgent, tasting of coffee and want. His hands grabbed my waist, pulling me against him. I felt his body, hard, strong, real. He lifted me onto the desk. Papers scattered. My skirt rode up as he stepped between my legs. His breath was hot on my neck, ragged. His hands trembled as they slid under my blouse, fingers rough on my skin. When he entered me, it was too much, too deep. A sharp pain made me gasp. "Easy," I whispered, voice breaking. But my hands clutched his shoulders, pulling him closer. He slowed, eyes searching mine. But then the rhythm built again, driven by something raw, desperate. The pain stayed, mixing with a heat I couldn't deny, and I let it happen. My body arched into his. My nails dug into his back. His stubble scraped my throat, our sweat mixed. Every movement was a confession, messy, human, wrong. It wasn't smooth, the desk creaked. My hip hit a stapler. His hands fumbled, trying to hold me tighter, but it was real. Every sensation, his weight, his breath, the way he shuddered when I tightened around him, was vivid. When it was over, he didn't pull away. His forehead pressed to mine, our breaths tangled. For a moment, I felt whole, wanted, alive. Then reality hit, Richard's office just down the hall, Max waiting at home, the life I was risking. I slid off the desk, legs shaky. He looked at me, eyes wide, like he was just waking up to the same truth. I didn't mean, he started. I shook my head, smoothing my skirt, hands trembling. Don't, I said. I couldn't hear it, couldn't face his regret. And just go. He nodded, grabbed his jacket, and left. When the door clicked shut, I collapsed into a chair, face in my hands, his scent still on my skin. I'd wanted it, wanted him, and that truth cut deeper than the physical pain. I'd crossed a line, and there was no going back. The guilt was alive inside me, clawing at my chest. I drove home, hands tight on the wheel. The memory of his touch burned my skin. I showered, scrubbing until I was raw, but I couldn't erase him, his weight, his breath, the ache he left behind. I kept seeing Max's face, his trusting smile. Richard's kind, unaware eyes, my stomach twisted. I'd betrayed them both, risked everything for a moment of weakness. But even in the shame, I couldn't kill the craving. My body still hummed at the thought of him. It was like I'd been asleep for years, and he'd woken me up, only to leave me with this mess. The next day, I braced myself. I expected Ethan to act different, distant, or worse, bold, but he was calm, polite, barely looked at me. It hurt how easily he slipped back into normal life while I was falling apart. I caught myself watching him, the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders, and hated myself for it. I buried myself in work, avoiding the conference room, but every creak of the floor made me jump. I was terrified Richard would see the truth in my face. We didn't talk about it, not for days, but Ethan kept staying late, and the tension between us pulsed under every glance. One afternoon, we were alone in the break room, refilling coffee. He stood too close. His arm brushed mine, and I felt it again, that spark, dangerous and alive. "Claire," he whispered, "we need to talk." I shook my head, heart racing, but my body leaned toward him. Traitor. "Not here," I said, voice tight. He nodded, but his eyes were dark, torn, and I knew he felt it too, the pull, the impossibility. It happened again a week later in the file room. We were sorting documents. The air was thick with paper and his cologne. He reached past me, hand grazing my hip. I froze, breath caught. He didn't move back. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said, voice rough. I wanted to tell him to shut up, to leave, but my hands trembled as I turned to him. His lips found mine, urgent. I let him push me against the shelves, let his hands slide under my skirt. This time it was faster, more desperate. My breath hitched as he moved. The pain was sharper but drowned by need. When it ended, we stood there, panting, and the shame crashed over me like a wave. "This can't happen again," I said, voice breaking. He nodded, but his eyes were heavy, and I knew neither of us believed it. The close call came a few days later. Richard asked me to stay late for a client call. Ethan was there working on a brief. We were in the main office, Richard just down the hall, when Ethan's hand brushed mine under the table on purpose. His eyes locked on mine. My heart stopped. Fear shot through me. I pulled away, face burning, and rushed to the bathroom, splashed water on my face. Terrified Richard had seen. That night I lay awake, imagining his face if he knew disappointment, disgust, the end of my career. I wanted to end it, tell Ethan it was over, but the thought of losing that feeling, of being wanted, of being alive ripped through me. I was trapped, torn between guilt and desire, and every day felt like time running out. By the end of the week, I was a mess, jumping at every email from Richard, avoiding Ethan's eyes. He tried to talk once in the copy room, voice low. "Claire, we can't keep ignoring this." I shook my head, eyes burning. "We can't keep doing this," I whispered. "Someone's going to find out." And as I said it, I knew it was true. The secret was too big, too heavy. It was only a matter of time. The end came quietly, not with a fight or a dramatic moment, but with a truth that cut deeper than I expected. Ethan started to change. He was in the office less. His words to me were short, careful. He'd nod when we passed, eyes sliding over me like I was just another coworker. And it hurt. A rejection that felt personal, even though I knew it shouldn't. I'd risked everything, my job, my son's trust, my self-respect for those moments. And now he was pulling away, leaving me to carry the weight alone. I told myself it was better this way, that this was how it had to end, but losing that spark, that feeling of being seen left me empty. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Richard to call me in, for someone to notice the tension in my eyes. But the office carried on, unaware, while I fell apart. At home, Max was his usual self, headphones on, laughing about school. I'd smile, chest tight, terrified he'd see the guilt in my face. I'd lie awake, replaying every moment with Ethan, the heat of his hands, the pain and thrill of his body, the way he looked at me like I was more than a mom or an employee. The shame was crushing, but so was the longing, and I hated myself for it. Then one Friday, it all fell apart. Richard was out. Ethan called me, voice low. "Just come to the file room, Claire, we need to talk." I shouldn't have gone, but I did, heart pounding as I closed the door behind me. He stood there, arms crossed, face tense, shadows under his eyes. "I'm leaving the internship," he said. No warning. My stomach dropped. "Next week, I told Dad I need to focus on grad school, but that's not it." His voice was rough. He looked at me, eyes raw. "I can't be around you and not want this." I stood frozen. The air between us felt thick. "Ethan," I started, but my voice cracked. He shook his head, stepping closer, close enough to feel his warmth but not touching. "I'm not good for you, Claire," he said, voice breaking. "Not for this job, not for anyone. I thought I could handle it, but I'm messing everything up." His hands clenched. I saw the guilt in him, the same weight I carried. "I don't want to hurt you," he said, quieter now. "Or Dad, I need to leave before I do." I wanted to argue, to tell him he didn't get to decide, to scream that he'd already hurt me by making me feel this way, then walking away. But the truth was, he was right. We were a fire, and if we kept going, we'd burn everything down. What about me? I asked, voice barely a whisper, the most selfish thing I'd ever said. He looked at me, eyes full of regret, and said, "You're stronger than you think, Claire. You'll be okay." Then he turned and left. I stood there, alone with the hum of the lights and the ache in my chest. The next week he was gone. Richard mentioned it casually. Ethan was figuring things out. I nodded, throat tight, like it meant nothing.